September 1, 1939. Germany attacked Poland. Poland had the support of Britain and France. He also had to declare war against Germany. At that time Australia was also a dominion of the British Empire. He himself had joined the war. The then Prime Minister of Australia, Robert Gordon Menzies, said in his address to the nation, "My dear countrymen, I have come today with great sadness to give information. Germany has attacked Poland. As a result, Great Britain has waged war against Germany. Now Australia is also involved in the war. There can be no bigger challenge for a democratic leader than making this announcement." More than 1 million soldiers of Australia took part in the Second World War. Thousands of these people never came back alive. Some families were so unlucky that they did not even get a chance to see the bodies of their loved ones. One such incident happened in November 1941, off the coast of Western Australia, when Australia lost its most important warship in the attack of the German raider ship Cormorant. Her name was HMAS Sydney II. The full form of HMAS is Her Majesty's Australian ship. The name Sydney II was given because a ship of the same name was already with Australia. That ship was of great use in the First World War. The Australian ship was destroyed in the attack of November 1941. There were 645 Marines on that ship. The attack was so severe that none of them survived. There was no trace of the ship either. It was 3 months after the attack. A corpse from the sea came towards the shore. On seeing it, it was found that he had tried to find the shore for a long time. But in the end, he died of hunger, thirst, and desperation. He was the only sailor of Sydney II whose remains came out. It was difficult to recognize him by face. His body was buried there. And the tomb was named, the Unknown Cellar. i.e., Unknown Marines. It is considered the biggest mystery in Australia's maritime history. By the time 8 decades passed. During this, some parts of the ship were found in 2008. But this did not prove the identity of the soldier. The government kept trying. That effort has now been successful. Through technology and scientific discoveries. After 80 years, that unknown sailor has got a name. Thomas Welby Clark. How did his identity come to be? What happened to his ship after all? Together, we will know the story of Pearl Harbour in Australia. HMAS Sydney II was previously part of the Royal Navy of Britain. Then it was known as HMS Phaeton. In 1934 it was bought by Australia. Then its name was changed. Before reaching Australia, this ship had taken part in the ongoing fighting in Africa. On the day the Second World War began, the ship was resting at Fremantle near Perth. As soon as the battle started, the ship came into action. It inflicted heavy losses on Italy in the Battle of Calabria in July 1940. Then in the Mediterranean, it forced the enemy ships to retreat. Sydney suffered minor damage on these fronts. The discussion of its bravery had spread everywhere. When HMAS Sydney returned to its home country in February 1941, the whole city stood to welcome it. Schools were given a holiday so that they could see their heroes. After this operation, Sydney was put in the work of escorting and monitoring. It is November 1941. HMAS Sydney was given a responsibility. He had to escort a ship carrying soldiers to Singapore. Then he had to return back to his base. But when after several days there was no news on the base, the search operation was started. During the operation he saw 5 German boats. The soldiers aboard were taken into custody. During interrogation, it was found that these people were sailors of the German ship Cormorant. He had drowned Sydney by ambushing. However, Cormorant was also destroyed by Sydney before it sank. Therefore, the soldiers aboard were running for their lives. After this, the government started sending letters to the families of Australian Marines. A corpse came out in February 1942. In the initial investigation, it was said that it was not from the naval HMAS Sydney. However, this claim was later proved to be false. Now the official confirmation has been made. It is clear that the soldier was aboard HMAS Sydney. And his name was Thomas Welby Clark. This has been confirmed after years of DNA testing. Knowing the name has brought out more information about Clark. For example, his father was a cattle farmer. Clark's mother's ancestors came to Australia from Scotland. Clark started his career as an accountant. Then he joined the army and later became part of the Royal Australian Navy. He was posted to HMAS Sydney in August 1941. At that time his age was only 21 years. On this occasion, Vice Admiral Mike Noonan, the Navy Chief of Australia, said, "His endless journey has come to an end. His soul will now find peace." Now that this story has happened, then go on listening to one more. By now you have heard the story of Pearl Harbor. December 7, 1941. Japan's attack on the U.S. naval base in Hawaii. The soldiers who slept early in the morning did not even get a chance to recover. America lost more than 2,000 of its soldiers. By that time, America had not joined the Second World War. But after this attack, everything changed. U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was eating at the time of the attack. When he got this information on the phone, he was shocked. The next day he addressed the Parliament. Roosevelt said, "Tomorrow, the day of December 7, 1941, will always be wrapped in a sheet of slander. Japan attacked the United States knowingly and without knowledge. No matter how long it takes to counter this attack, the people of America will win on the strength of their determination." America had announced its entry into the Second World War. On the other hand, the condition of Britain was worse due to the attacks of Germany. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill called Roosevelt shortly after hearing the news of Pearl Harbor. Churchill asked, "Mr. President, what am I hearing?" Roosevelt replied, "It's true. You are not alone now. We are all in the same boat." Churchill spoke with the press. There was happiness on his face. They said, "I can't describe how relieved I am. America and Britain will now fight together. This is historical. Thank God." America came and eventually, the Allies won. Japan and its allies had to face defeat and they also had to pay the price. The Pearl Harbor incident changed the outcome of the Second World War. This was the story of America's Pearl Harbor. Very few people know that Pearl Harbor happened to Australia as well. But it was forgotten with time. What was that incident? It is 2.5 months after the incident of Pearl Harbor. The date was February 19, 1942. Darwin is a city at the northern end of Australia. It is situated on the edge of the sea. Because of this, it was the perfect base to deliver troops and equipment to areas like Indonesia, Timor, Philippines. The government had also developed it accordingly. Japan felt that if it wanted to move forward in the Indo-Pacific, then this base would have to be destroyed. Under this plan, a plan was made to attack Darwin in February 1942. The first bomb dropped at 9:58 a.m. on the 19th. After this, the attack continued for 40 minutes. More than 200 Japanese aircraft together made Darwin smoke. Japan did not even leave civilian areas. In later days, also Japan carried out more than 60 airstrikes on Australia, but nothing was more terrible than Darwin. By the time the attack was over, 8 ships had sunk. Among them was an American warship. 22 aircraft were destroyed. Dozens of buildings had turned to dust. More than 200 lives were also lost in this attack. At that time, Darwin's population was about 4,000. Half of them fled the city. Darwin had no telephone, so it took a long time for the information to go out. During this, panic spread among soldiers and civilians. These fears did not reach the rest of the population, so the government kept the real loss hidden. For a time it seemed that Australia would come under the control of Japan. But it didn't happen. By the end of 1942, Japan was getting defeated on different fronts. Therefore, they could not go ahead with their plan to win Australia. This chapter of Australia and World War ends here. Now let's go America. Oklahoma State. If you look on the map of America, then it falls towards the south. On November 18th, a prisoner was to be executed in Oklahoma. Everything had been decided. It was just late at 5 o'clock in the evening. But the punishment was stopped at the last moment. It was learned that the state's governor, Kevin Stitt, has commuted the death sentence to life imprisonment. What is this whole matter? And what is the full story behind the change in punishment? Year 1999. Paul Howell, a businessman, was murdered in the Edmond area of Oklahoma. Julius Jones was arrested in this case. He was prosecuted. In 2002, the court convicted him. Jones was sentenced to death. This was followed by a long period of review and appeal. At last, the last date has arrived. On November 18th, Jones was scheduled to be given a poison injection. But there were protests against it. Actually, the protests have been going on since 2018. A documentary series was released in June that year, The Last Defense. It also featured the story of Julius Jones. Questions were raised in this that the Jones did not get the right trial. Apprehension was also raised that Jones may have been implicated because of being black. After that, the discussion started. Many celebrities also demanded reduction in the punishment of Jones. One was the pressure. The second reason is from an incident in October 2021. Oklahoma is one of 27 U.S. states where the death penalty is still in force. It was temporarily banned in 2015. The moratorium on the death penalty was lifted on October 28, 2021. On that day, a prisoner named John Marion Grant was to be executed. When he was given the poison injection, he vomited. After several minutes of sobbing, he lost his life. Due to this, a debate started on the inhumanity of punishment. Amid mounting pressure, Governor Kevin Stitt banned the death penalty. He has commuted Jones's sentence to life imprisonment. However, during this time he will never get parole.